Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode on Founders Tribe, a podcast production presented by thestartupchef.com. This is once again your host, Sven Milder, and like every week, I invite inspiring global movers and shakers to the show to casually chat about successful strategies they have deployed to found and build awesome businesses and live fulfilling lives. At the Startup Chef, we are on a mission to elevate and inspire 100,000 founders globally to help them shortcut their road to success by offering easy access to investment capital and world-class expertise. If you want to discover more or download one of our free resources that can help you propel your business forward, visit us at thestartupchef.com. Thestartupchef.com. Today into the show, a very special guest, my good friend and as well serial entrepreneur, Mr. Shaan Coelho. Shaan Coelho started his career at MTV Networks as a social media producer, where very quickly after 2012, he joined Gary Vee in his journey to build VaynerMedia, one of the most successful media companies in the world. Starting as an account executive, he went up to being a global group director and eventually vice president. Packed with all of his knowledge and experience, he started his own consultancy firm, Three Rabbits, or better to say 3RBTS, to help businesses stay ahead of an evolving global landscape. And leveraging a global network of partners, the consultancy connects businesses in need with solution providers around the world. Today's episode is all about connecting with your why, committing to your goals, and finding a deeper meaning in your online reputation and branding. Without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. And when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it is one of his favorite quotes, which is also a Coelho, right? So what everybody is always asking themselves, Shaan Coelho, is that, a secret son or otherwise family of the famous Paulo Coelho. Is it, Shaan?
Let's address it right up front, and I appreciate that. No. Although during my youth, I did like to have a lot of fun with it, and just watch people's initial reaction to that slip once the assumption is levied across. But no relation, just a lot of inspiration from him to me, and so I'm an adoring fan the way many are around the world.
So have you ever explored the family ties? If there would be some connection in some kind of way, far DNA.
Different lineages, right? So I believe he's Brazilian with Portuguese influence. I'm actually Indian with Portuguese influence, and so that's where our origin stories, I think, differ at a very early stage.
Cool, man. Well, I'm super glad to get a hold on you. I know you're extremely busy lately. We have spent an amazing time together as well in the time that you were living here in Bali. You're currently in Toronto. For all of the listeners that are dialing in, Shaan is a true digital marketing specialist and is someone who can really look around the corners. And I think that's a thread that we all really would love to have. Currently as well the founder of Three Rabbits, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later more. As well, started his career in MTV and was one of the first employees from VaynerMedia, which is all known under Gary Vee, where he helped Gary to expand all over the world in a period of around 5 years. So your real threat is storytelling. And the thing that I want to kick off with today, and unfortunately it didn't happen, but it was for me so exciting when I saw that, was the greatest adventure on earth, right? So please tell people a little bit about the greatest adventure on earth, what it is, what your plan with it was, and where did things not really fall into place due to COVID?
Yeah. The greatest adventure on earth is still a 3-year, 3-continent scavenger hunt to find a hidden $1 million somewhere on the planet. For the TV watchers out there, you can think about it kind of like the TV show The Amazing Race, except you don't have to quit your job to do it. And so it only really asked about 2 weeks of travel for participants. And it's a combination of escape room, adventure, mystery, and exploration, both of the world around you and of yourself as you work through different challenges. And so that was the premise, the dream, the promise of the greatest adventure on earth. as we spent the better part of the last year building it.
Wow. Yeah, and especially what really excited me about it, and it fit very well with your way of thinking, is that we're all living in a world where we're traveling to places that are Insta famous, you know, and we think that it's super cool to be at this waterfall, and those Instagram influencers need to be there in the morning because at 7:30 or 6:30 there's nobody left. But come 3 hours later, and the place is bloody packed. The Instagram influencers have a little bit destroyed all of these places, and I still remember also when I was checking your pitch deck at that time, is that you wanted to give people another experience by exploring new gems that were not explored yet, and do it in a very, very playful way. So can you just walk me through what was the initial take and initial motivation to start this project, and how did you find your skills that you have been developing over the lifetime to be very useful for that?
Yeah. I mean, going back to what you started with for a second, really what we wanted to do was reinvigorate, independent travel with a sense of adventure and exploration, because we felt like, a lot of people were doing bucket list items, but missing out on the things that make travel such a rewarding experience. And, the experience of foreign cultures, foreign cuisines, foreign communities, and those connections that come as a result of it. And so that was really the driving principle behind why we were building what we were building. For me, the way it came about was serendipitously. I was in Singapore. Probably, this is what 2019, right? So I was in Singapore in like a hot February morning in Singapore, because there's no such thing as anything other than a hot morning in Singapore. And I jumped on the phone with one of my friends who I hadn't spoken to in a couple months, and he mentioned that he was doing this adventure rally in Southern Africa. He was like, "I'm sure I've told you about it, but we're doing this, 6-country road trip rally throughout this, 6 different countries in Southern Africa, and we need a fourth. We've got 3, we need a fourth." And, we talked for maybe 25 minutes, and on the phone, I was like, "This is my kind of thing. I'm doing it. Let's go." Yeah. Upon going there and experiencing all that subcontinent had to offer, and all those different countries had to offer, we also met a lot of different people. And the founder of that company, that was the Put Rally. And the founder of that company came to my friend and I, and he said, "Hey, I've got this next idea, and I've been looking for people to help bring it out into the world, and, basically co-founders. And let me tell you about it." And so we were, sitting on the beach drinking beers in Mozambique at the end of this adventure, at the end of the rally, and he explained what he believed to be the greatest adventure on earth. And so, when life serves you up opportunities like that, I have a tendency to pick up, really listen and to dive in deeper. And so, we just said yes, and we're like, let's find a way to do this. And so we spent the better part of the next year really taking it from a conversation to a concept, from a concept to a deck, from a deck to a company, and really building something that, we felt people could get behind.
So truly amazing. And what I still remember is when I received your deck as well, is that you used an alternative method to fund your operations and fund your company, right? You didn't went into the traditional VC route. Can you tell us a little bit more about the way you have funded the idea and how it actually banged against the wall, and you made a very smart decision that will pay you back later on by giving back the money to people, right? So can you tell a little bit more about what you did?
Yeah, so we wanted to find a way to have it be more inclusive, right? We realized that, our investors could also be participants, because the value proposition we were putting on the table was the type of thing that had pretty broad appeal if you found people that were adventure minded. And, a lot of investors have a sense of adventure as well, just based on the sheer nature of investing, right? There's safety, there's growth, there's acceleration, there's practicality, but there's also a bit of risk, right? And it's risk assessment, but there's risk. And so we were like, what's a better way to do this using all the tools that we have available and evolutions of legislation and modern government models? And so we did something called equity crowdfunding. And, there's a lot of different equity crowdfunding platforms out there. We found one that really fit for us, and decided to build a campaign there. So, created our, we had our pitch deck, we told our story, we talked thoroughly about, how do we really make this stand out and answer questions that investors have right at the upfront.
Yeah. And did you find out that shortcut the fundraising period if you compare it to a traditional way of pitching in front of VCs?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it gave us the opportunity to have spurts of accelerated growth and also incremental growth because the investment thresholds were much more accessible. And so you didn't have to come in at a 10,000 or a 50,000 or a 500,000 minimum. You could come in at $500 and you could get a small portion or a small share of what we were building.
And is it more like a syndicate structure where you have more like one entity and everybody buys a little bit of the pie?
Yeah. And so we carved out a portion of the company that was open for investment, and then people, depending on their investment size and threshold, got a piece of the company basically.
So do you believe if you compare this with the traditional way of funding your company, and that's always what I've enjoyed about our conversation is your mentality to look around the corner. How do you see equity fundraising or fundraising for companies getting into a shift? I mean, do you see that through these platforms this is already happening, or what is your general vision of this landscape?
Yeah, it's funny. I was having a conversation about this with a friend just yesterday. I think, and look, I'm not the most experienced person when it comes to traditional VC fundraising, right? And I'll be the first to tell you that. But I will tell you that oftentimes I've found that the goals of the investor or the VC and the founder are not often in alignment, right? Founders generally want to build their company, do something positive, change the world is often thrown around, right? But they impact, right? They have an intention to create something with impact and with meaning. VCs, while they may be in support of your vision, their end agenda and their ultimate objective is really just growth of their individual portfolios, right? It's return on investment. And so I think that, you've got two people that are invested in the growth of something, but they have different end goals and different end objectives at times, right? Like, yes, founder wants to generate revenue and get a return on his investment, her investment, what they're putting out into the world, their investment. And they also want to bring their vision to life. The VC or the investor may not have that same multifaceted agenda. It may just be as simple as, I want to generate a return on this because I need to then qualify that and quantify that to my backers, my family house, whoever that happens to be, to do the next one.
Yeah. So I think, and this is, of course, I'm within the startup shop. We're helping a lot of startup founders get easy access to capital. But by times, this is also a little bit my worry, because if you analyze the venture capitalist model, it's like they have a bunch of money fueled by limited partners. There needs to be at least like a 20-25% return per annum. These guys take on a big fee as in monthly management and with a cash out. So the only focus is to find these mega companies that can actually make up for all of their losses, right? So what I tend to see is that there's so many great initiatives in the world that make a significant impact, have the opportunity to become a $100 million company or a $200 million company, but maybe not this unicorn, right? But for some kind of reason, these companies get a little bit neglected because they don't fit in the bill of the VC. So I think this is where the equity crowdfunding really comes into place, right? And seeing that together with it's a little bit like an Indiegogo for equity funding, right? And then you also see that people work harder to stimulate you on your business trip. But eventually you decided, because what nobody knows, I mean, Shaan was completely ready to offer every investor and also every new potential guest of the greatest adventure on the planet an amazing experience. But due to COVID, of course, it's almost getting cliche. Due to COVID, things changed because you were very successful within your race, and eventually, with the outscope, you needed to make a very big decision.
Yeah, it came down to this. We built a multi-continent adventure travel company and prepared to launch it during the most prohibitive travel period of the last 50 to 100 years.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And, we took a step back and we looked at, the work that we put in, the money that we'd raised, but more importantly, we looked at the people that made the decision to believe in us, right? To put their money and their faith in us. And we realized that we didn't, and we still don't know what the future of travel looks like. And so can we even deliver on the vision for this concept, this idea, as we have it right now? And the answer at the time, and this was, March of this year of 2020, was no, we can't. And right now, whether it's $50, $500,000, or $50,000, whatever you happen to give, that money matters right now. That money makes a difference. And so we made the difficult decision as founders to give the money of our raise back and try to take care of the people that put their faith in us. And just, if we decide to do something again, like, we got a lot of responses from it. Just thank you. A lot of integrity behind the decision, people acknowledging the difficulty of it. And so ultimately we cared way more about doing the right thing than just having the money.
Yeah. Well, I love that. I truly, truly love that you make a decision, because I know it's very hard. You have extreme validation of your product. You succeeded in such a way to seal the deal and then giving back the money. I believe personally, when all of the travel limitations are getting less and you reach out to them again, man, people are really thrilled to get traveling at that time, right? So while you were sharing about this, I wanted to bridge this to what I believe is very important and something that you work on day in, day out, which is more or less online reputation, right? I always say, like, okay, especially for the people that we encounter with, we need to be so aware of your online reputation all over, because everything what you feed Google is it's what chases you for all of the years to come, right? And I think your decision right now to give back the money and don't put yourself on an island and become the scam artist, right, is a very good one. So talking about online reputation and digital storytelling, right? I mean, that's what you're doing. So currently in 3Rabbit, what are the projects that you're working on, and how do you help people tell brilliant stories online?
I took a step, and I took a step back and I thought about what is something that I really care about. And I couldn't identify one thing. I wasn't like, I genuinely care about pens or sunglasses or bottles of water. But you know what I do genuinely care about is helping other people bring their visions to life. And it's a thing I'm insanely curious about. Like, I want to know what keeps you up at night and what motivates and drives you. I want to understand your ambitions, your hopes, your wants, your dreams, your challenges, and your fears. I just want to get plugged in and get to know you. And so I have an innate curiosity about people. I have an innate curiosity about business and the intersection of the two. And so I realized that if I could spend my time getting to know people and getting to understand their businesses and how to unlock their businesses for others, that would be a good place for me to focus on. And so that's what I started with 3Rabbits. 3Rabbits is really, it's focused on revenue, operations, and culture. And my background is primarily coming from the world of digital agencies and digital marketing. And so really what I've been focusing on is helping entrepreneurs, founders of agencies, to borrow a phrase, see around the corners and see what's coming up next. Because I was fortunate enough to be able to go and do that as a member of VaynerMedia and working with Gary Vaynerchuk. And so, whether you're 5 employees or 50 employees or on your way to 500, I got to go down that roadmap multiple different times across New York, LA, and London. And so now I'm helping different companies in different parts of the world do that.
Okay, Shaan, you were telling about, the framework, right? Where do you come in, and what's the promise that you make, and what is the true thing that you always do, to just give people that jump start, right? If you want to give the listener something, they want to tell great stories online, what is that framework where companies, startups need to think in order to, move themselves above the field?
Yeah, I really focus on listening to start with, right? Like, what do you have to say? What is your story? I think a lot of people spend the time focusing on What is the unique value proposition that I have, the unique sales proposition? What are my differentiators in the marketplace? I think those are all really important, but how do those things weave together into a narrative that people can connect to at emotional level? And I focus a lot on that. And, it's funny, when you ask people really direct questions, you get really direct answers. But when you are able to, drop and relax your shoulders a bit and level a little bit, then you start to get the depth and the core of the truth of what drives a person, what motivates a person. And so I listen for that. I fish for that. I float around for that until it surfaces. And then I grab onto that and I'm like, all right, let's figure out how we use this to propel you towards the things that you ultimately want. Because that's the other thing is, what do you want? What's your agenda, right? Like, what's that thing that you really want? Do you want to be seen as?
Question one is, okay, what do you want, right? Then the second point that you're saying is you're dialing really in by asking direct questions, provide direct answers, and then you're going more into a listening mode to really absorb the sponge. Okay, so walk me through it. The why and what they want, the listening part, and what's the action plan, right? Where is the magic? Where is the cooking? Where are the ingredients being? What takes care of the change?
Yeah, well, look, it's the connection point between the thing the person wants and where they actually are, and what resources and tools and unique things do they have available to get them there. So that trajectory. And so that's where you plot the roadmap. And that's basically what I do for people is I work, and usually within the context of an agency structure or within the context of a small business. And so that's where I come from a background perspective. And so I've done that so many different times for so many different types of businesses, whether small or large, whether they're small to medium-sized businesses or Fortune 50, 100, 500 that have specific campaigns that have, been brought to us or the agency that I was a part of at the time. And so it's really been marrying those two different pieces.
So what is the most common thing that you analyze in your initial conversation with these agencies or big companies or startups or, like you say, Fortune 500, 1500 companies? What is the common problem that people don't see that is your first quick wash to make a quick win?
Yeah, what's great is the way I always start with people is in that whole exercise. I call it, you paint the canvas, right? And so we sit down together, and whether it's a whiteboard or a conversation, we paint the canvas on the entirety of your business, because I just need to understand it, right? If I can understand your business as well as you understand your business, then all of a sudden we're talking on the same playing field and we can analyze it. And so in the process of painting the canvas, a founder will generally tell you, these are the things that I really want to focus on. These are the gaps in my organization. These are the gaps in this picture. These are the areas where I think you can fill in. The benefit of that is that I have a different perspective, an entire different life history, right? I have a different why, I have a different how, I have a different thing driving me also. So I can sit back and we can look at this canvas that we've painted together, and this founder can look at me and say, these are the things I think you should focus on. And I'm like, but have you seen these over here on the left-hand side in the corner? If you miss those, maybe we should talk about that too. And so every founder has a different thing that they've identified as their missing part. And I tend to find the other pieces that they haven't seen. And then together we're like, all right, how do we build this road to, this is the thing that I really want. This is the thing that you really see as a need. And let's figure out how we close the gap on those things together.
Yeah. I think while you're chatting, one of the comparisons that come to life for me is, it's the same if you're walking through your house every day, right? And you don't see the beauty of your art at the wall anymore because you see it every day. So it's almost the same, like, hey, as a founder, you are running your company every day, but you're getting a little bit blind for all of the opportunities that are out there, right? So where you literally come in is as a very experienced, packed with knowledge, a fresh look to help them see the beauty of their living room / AKA their business, right?
Yeah, I thoroughly smell all the roses and encourage others to as well.
Yeah, awesome. So, talking a little bit about VaynerMedia, I think that's very impressive what you have been doing there, and it gives you as well a lot of credibility for all of the doors that you're knocking. You were one of the first employees from Gary, and you have actually helped him build and scale in 5 years to multiple different kind of countries, right? So how was that journey for you, and what were your main takeaways that you're currently using in your business?
I always tell people that I grew up in VaynerMedia. I really learned. I didn't just learn how to be good at advertising or storytelling or strategy or marketing, but I actually learned how to be myself because I grew into me. And I had so many different opportunities presented to me, and I was really fortunate. So I was one of the first 100 employees of this agency during a rapid time of growth and scale. And I think the organization is now something like 900 employees across 6 offices. And so I started in New York and was a part of just a growth and scale team there. Then got the opportunity to move to Los Angeles and help shepherd the growth and just the evolution of a new office in Los Angeles. And so got to be a part of that organization and that growth too. And so how do you build a separate office as part of an organization when you don't have the main selling proposition, which is the guy himself? And so we just had to go and figure out a way to do it. And sometimes I was that guy, sometimes the work was that guy, but all the way through it was, how do we make sure that we represent the values of the organization, do the work, deliver on the work, and still take care of the people that are a part of this whole thing? And that's actually, I think, where the format for revenue operations and culture came from for me, because it was the role that I kept playing every time I moved office. It was, let's drive top line revenue. Let's look at the way we can improve efficiencies within the operations of the organization. And let's make sure that the people that are a part of this feel taken care of, feel listened to, and that we use feedback loops to continuously improve.
Gotcha. I think you're also tapping onto a very interesting point, though, is if our companies are small, right? It's always, for example, if you go out right now, let's use that as in this context. If you go out right now, it's Shaan from Three Rabbits that presents it and provides the magic sauce and gives the solution and the opportunity, right? If I go out, same. But when our business is growing, you're tapping into something very interesting, and that specific key person of influence is not there, right? Then you still need to translate these values. So how do we let our business grow while we're not there, but still giving people the feeling that they're working with daddy, It's like, so.
Yeah, or mommy, right?
Yeah, mommy, fine. Yeah, fine. I'm fine with both.
It's culture. I think it's culture. I think it's values. I think it's trust. I think it's empowerment, right? Like, I think you have to trust your team to embody the values of your organization. And you have to empower them to be able to go to bat for the organization, for the work, for you in the absence of you. And I mean, that's a lot of my growth came through, I was given opportunities, people trusted me, people empowered me. And it's also because they saw it in me, right? They saw that I showed up. They saw that I put in the work. And so then they were like, all right, maybe he earned the trust, right? Maybe he's earned being empowered to go do these things. And sometimes, way more often than not, I asked for forgiveness, not permission, because I was like, maybe there's an opportunity here. Let's just try it. And let's use let's use every different at bat as an opportunity to grow. And that's the way in which I went about doing it. But to really get back to your question, I think it's about making sure that people know and are really clear around what you're doing, why you're doing it, where are we going, right? What's our vision and mission? And making sure that people understand the values that the organization needs to embody that are important to everyone that's a part of it, bought into it, and then giving people the opportunity to go live it.
So I also, it's like in-house branding, maybe. Do you want to call it? Yeah. You want to call it like that? Sure. In-house branding, creating a very structured framework. I think also productize your services are important, right? Because otherwise there's not a start and that there's not an end. And only when you start structuring and productizing your service offering, combine that with a branding together, then people can go out there based on trust and build up the credibility, right? Yeah.
Yeah, give people an opportunity to go out and do it, and give them the tools to be able to go out and do it as well.
Yeah. So interesting, very interesting. And we were talking before we started the call, which I think is for many people very interesting to hear. And so beautiful as well. So when we kicked off the call, we had a quick chat in, and you were telling that you have now one of your clients who was invited for a pitch, and there was a tender with around 20 other different kind of companies. And you are helping him currently to really raise his bar and become a rock star in his field. And the first thing that he said, oh shit, there's 20 people, there's 20 companies that I need to compete with. Let's not do it, right? So a very, very limiting belief. And then long story short, I leave it up to you to share with our listeners how you converted a limiting belief, being able to tender in a big deal, and what happened.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and this is fortunate, right? To its time, this happened literally last week, but it was just nice to go and grow through that process together, with an organization. And so, yeah, we got invited into an opportunity to respond to a fairly large business proposal. There was a lot of competition in the field. He felt historically that these weren't opportunities that he had won or where there was a lot of success, and so he didn't want to do it. And I went to him and I was like, look, especially during right now, like this is a down year for agencies all around the world and for companies and businesses all around the world. People are having a tough time. But I think particularly with this one organization, he as a founder has taken it upon himself to retain staff, to keep people on and to give people like just get a little bit of stability and certainty in a time when there's so much everything else, right? There's so much other. And so he's provided that. And so I went to him and I was like, look, man, like you have the team on staff, you have the resources. We're having a down year. I was like, let's use this as a growth opportunity for the team. There have been people that have expressed a desire to grow. Let's give them an opportunity and a shot. And you know what? I'll take the whole thing on myself, right? And so I'll, work with one individual employee, maybe two. But I'll give someone a chance. I'll empower someone to rise up. I'll oversee, and so it won't be a big ask on you. And let's see what we can do with it.
We're talking about
exactly.
Trust. So you give the people
exactly. Exactly. And so, yeah, I wanted to do that. And so she was hungry for the opportunity. She rose right up to it. We went back and forth. I empowered her. I gave her a ton of space to figure this thing out. Like I sent her this and I was like, okay, cool. Now tell me what we're going to do. And she's like, aren't you supposed to tell me what to do? And I was like, no, this is your chance, right? To really run with this. So you tell me what you're going to do, what the plan is, what the expectations for the team are, how we go about this. And I'll support you from here, but this is your show. And so together we worked through it, and she really rose to the occasion. And, we delivered the proposal. We got shortlisted. So from 3 to 20, we were asked to come and present. So virtual presentations, which, pitching is one of my strengths and specialties, but pitching when you can't read a room because you're focused on your presentation, not the easiest thing. And so we got to go through that learning experience together, pitched, and ultimately they just came back and they said, yes, we've chosen you. You guys have won the pitch. We want to move forward with you. And I didn't know this at the time, but this is actually the largest contract in 10 years for the company, in the history of the company, right? Company's been around for 10 years. They've never closed a contract this big. And this is all because, at a founder level, he trusted me. At a leadership consultant, organizational development level, I trusted and empowered the people there, gave support, a bit of experience and perspective, and then people showed up, right? And so they took that trust on themselves, realized it as a moment of growth and accountability, and showed up all the way through. And so that it worked out.
These are really the stories that I live for. And especially what I like about the part is that, we will not succeed, right? And then eventually you're scoring or helping them score the largest contract in 10 years. And there's most probably a lot of golden nuggets inside here. And one of the golden nuggets is, what I read is like, you have trust in your team. The second thing is, it's COVID, and you're indeed, love what you're saying, reading the room. You're reading your fucking screen, and you don't feel, it's very static. So what were other successful ingredients amongst trust that you have identified that made this pitch to become a winner?
I think willingness, right? Like they wanted it, once we made the decision to do it, there was no question of how much work should we put in or not. It was, let's go and do it, right? And so I think willingness to really show up and do the work was one of the key components. Another thing that I think, was really exhibited by the team was self-awareness is really what it comes down to, right? Like we knew that, we as an organization were maybe one of the smaller ones that were pitching, right? Like, we were going against, 50, 100, 150 people, and that was a smaller shop, right? And so, all right, cool. If we're smaller, this is our self-awareness. Those are our disadvantages. How do we overcome that? Let's put more strategy. Let's put more effort. Let's really exhibit our expertise. Let's really illustrate where we're coming from on this. And so I think the combination of self-awareness, trust, and willingness to do the work and show up to do the work, show up for the opportunity are parts of the reasons why that worked. And honestly, I think those things are applicable across the board in life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And do you believe, the sense of creativity, is these creativity with all of these agencies more or less the same, or do you feel the team was so empowered with the opportunity and because of their willingness and because of the opportunity to grow as an individual that they could almost, tip their toe into a new inspirational source to get the max out of them in order to deliver better pitches?
I'm willing to say yes to that one just because I haven't thought about it before. But I think I think creativity is the type of thing that we all have inside of us. Yeah. And it's about finding the right set of ingredients, startup chef, to create the right type of output that is full of creativity, which is a byproduct of inspiration and resource and things that are floating around you. And so I think once the team made the decision to show up and do the work, they were ready. And I think those three ingredients, the trust, the willingness, and the self-awareness are the ingredients that open the floodgates of creativity for them to continue to follow through.
I strongly recommend you to make a user case of this, because this is truly an amazing story. I really love it. And now we're tapping into more like a little bit deeper. It's like the fact that a lot of times we are excited about an opportunity, but perhaps we're not always completely dialed into the opportunity, right? Yesterday I was talking with my girlfriend as well. It's like, all of the time that we went to school and that we need to study for one of our exams, and you have these people that are studying 3-4 weeks in advance, right? And you have the people that are studying 5 days before the exam. And strange enough, because there's pressure, there's more commitment, right? So I think the commitment factor is so important in life. Do you have any other examples in your life where you really can share, like, okay, hey, here I showed a lot of commitment and this was the outcome, and maybe as well a failure that you miss on an opportunity? Do you have something that comes in your mind?
Yeah. I think commitment has been a subject that I have had a long and storied relationship with in and of itself. And so I'll tell you this, after my success within the corporate structure, within corporate is a loose term even, right? Like within the world of VaynerMedia and 800, 900 person organization, I committed to living a different way of life. And I really wanted to. I was like, I've been a business guy in a major city my whole life. There are all these other ways to live and experience life. Let me go and do those things too. And so I committed to learning how to sail and being a sailor and moving to Greece. And I was a sailor in Greece. And then I committed to being a farmer and a winemaker in Italy. I committed to these different romantic ideals of life because I wanted to go explore what they were like. I wanted to taste them. And the reason I got to Bali in the first place was to be a mixed martial artist, because I wanted to commit to living life as an athlete and seeing what it would be like if I trained day in, day out, 5 times a day, 6 days a week, and just lived it. And, commitment afforded me experience. Experience for me is one of the best educators. And so that was how commitment helped me all throughout my life, right? In that chapter, right? That 2017 to 19, was a year of me committing to these different ways of life, many different lives in this one. But at the same time, I was failing to commit to a lot of other things, right? Whether that was partners, whether it was at specific locations, whether those were expectations of me, whether they were society expectations or, familial ones. I was so deeply committed to my own individual journey that I also failed to show up for other commitments in my life that other people had of me. And so, the byproduct of that, I lost some friendships, I lost some relationships, I lost some things that were important in my life at the time because I was too busy focusing on committing to something else.
Well, maybe that's just a result, right? I mean, I think it's really strongly about the focus area in this part. And of course, when you are rising to the top, you get people that are just simply not joining you on that ride. Because otherwise, I'm sure when you do the farming or when you did the sailing or when you become a ninja, that you had a few nice friends coming and tagging along the road, right?
Yeah. I thought I lost some. I didn't lose them all,
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. No, the whole commitment part and dialing really into an opportunity and setting yourself up drives me then to more like spiritual level. Do you have any morning rituals going on where you have, visualization, journaling? Are you an artist? What keeps you sane?
Yeah, I love these questions. For me, I subscribe to like multiple modalities, and so I do this across the board with my life. And so when it comes to physical fitness, I don't just box or just resistance and weight train, but I run, I box, I resistance and weight train, I yoga. I do a lot of different forms of physical movement. One of the mantras that's been floating around for me for a couple of years is motion before emotion. And so I just try to move because moving helps me expend a lot of excess energy and also helps ground me. And so that's one thing that's a big part of my habits, my practices. Another thing, and this is more recent for me, is I've been building a spiritual and meditative practice for a couple of years now, and I've started to challenge myself a little bit more on this. And there's that quote. It's all of man's problems are traced to his inability to sit still in a room with his thoughts alone for 30 minutes. So I think the exact quote is all of man's problems can be traced to his inability to sit still in a room with his feelings for 30 minutes.
Beautiful.
We're so, and this is from the 1600s, and he's a French philosopher, Pascal, I think. And so we're so busy hustling and running around and distracting ourselves and consuming that we forget to just take the time to let ourselves process. And so I try to get out into nature a lot. And then also in a more, practical everyday example, I've just been doing 30-minute non-guided sit still with myself meditations. And it's incredible how much comes up. Like your mind is not used to being left alone. And so it just fills the space until it doesn't anymore, until it said everything it has to say. And then you just get left alone with.
Did you, when you just started your meditation, didn't you have every 2 minutes, it's constantly noise, right? So how did you build it up because I'm currently experimenting with it. I do maybe 5-6 minutes or something, right? So what's the trick? What's the trick to come to 30 minutes, man? It's
I don't know if there's a trick. I'll tell you what I've tried, I tried, guided meditations. Those have helped me in the past, especially when I was first starting out. I've done just sound meditations just to quiet out the outside noises. And then for me now, it's just the biggest thing that comes into my head is it's almost time, right? It's almost done. We're almost there. Should I just check? And I'm like, no. I have a thing that tells me when 30 minutes is up. We all have things that can tell us when 30 minutes is up. That's fine. Just sit here and let it do its thing.
Yeah.
Let it do its thing. And I'm not trying to stop it. Sometimes I'm like, come on, don't do that. Come on. Come on. You're trying to get to a place, a destination, but it's not about that. For me, right now, it's literally just about seeing what comes up and seeing how I start to relate to me through that internal time, that conversation with me.
Yeah.
So when we're having this conversation, I always look for a few key concepts, right? And if I listen to the different kind of things that we are discussing, I really feel one thing popping up, which is showing up, right? It's your why, showing up, right? Being committed to something, showing up. Being in your meditation and making those small little steps, showing up, right? Going into the pitch, showing up. and showing up and be very, very committed about that. I mean,
yeah, then you nailed it. You know, that's I wrote in my journal on January 1st this year. I picked a phrase to define the year for me, and it was show up.
you know, I think that's maybe also the difference between winning or losing, or I don't want to say losing, but winning or crushing it, right? Is it if you're showing up, lots of things are happening. I was recently reading a book. I loved it because it just kicked me in the ass. It was called The Compound Effect, right? I'm not sure if you have heard of it, but the whole story comes, of course, down to make daily mini steps by showing up, right? And over time, that is just accumulating into this mass change that you're going to see. But a lot of times in our mind, we have this vision where we want to go, and it feels so far, and therefore we are getting demotivated, right? But if we're creating the small little steps, and these small little steps, and we're committing to it, and we're showing up. So it could be, for example, meditation practice. Today I do 2 minutes. Tomorrow I go 2 minutes, 30 seconds, right? And I mean, in the end of the year, you're sitting there for an hour, right? I mean, it's very interesting how at that way real habits start dialing in, and you can really make a big change in your life. Yeah.
Yeah. I think incremental progress, right? You don't have to get to wherever you're trying to get to today or even tomorrow, but if you take an incremental step in the direction of it, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And to make yourself accountable, because of course many people will listen to the show. What are you currently committing to, and what is your roadmap for the coming 6 months? Where's Shaan working on?
Great question. Yeah, for me,
Personally,
the things
and work-wise, of course. Yeah.
Personally and professionally. Yeah. I'll start with the personal. Actually, is on the personal side. You know, this. What we're all experiencing, right? Like solitude, like solidarity and solitude, right? I think it brings a lot of things up for everyone, and it forces you to confront yourself often. But one of the things that has come to life is, because we were talking about this before the chat, I've been living on the road, on the go for 4 years in different parts of the world, different types of agendas, different types of workforces. And the thing that I realized that I miss the most is community. And what's community comprised of, right? It's like people that know me and connect with me, and I can have that connection, and also family. And so, like, personally right now this year, like for the remainder of this year, I'm committed to getting back to a place where I can be close to my family and spending like quality time with them, because I realize how important those foundational relationships are. The thing I always say about, my core family unit is because our roots are so deep, our branches have been able to grow so broad and so wide. And so it's okay for me to be on the other side of the world from, my parents, because I still feel really close to them, because I think we're rooted in a really strong and compassionate way. And I feel similar about all my siblings. And so I think personally, I'm committing to really showing up for my family this year, for the remainder of the year, and just on a more everyday basis too. And then from a community standpoint, taking advantage of the tools that we have today to build, maintain, and strengthen connections and bonds with people that really matter to me. And so, my social group will tell you, I'm the first person to pick up the phone and send you like a random voice note about a random thing that happened that we shared in a year ago. And it's just like, or 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. And it's like, why not? Because it matters, right? Like those moments, if I can't recreate it in person, I'll recreate it in another moment where you can experience it in person, and we get to relive that moment together for a second. So those are some of the personal side of things. On a professional standpoint, it's about growth, but it's also about incremental progress, right? And so it's the combination of the last couple of things that we've been talking about. Is I really have enjoyed a period of growth professionally over the course of the last 4 months, 6 months, really 12, to be honest with you. And so I'm committed to continuing to do the things that have facilitated that and allowed that. But I'm also not putting so much pressure on myself that I have to get to an end goal or an end destination today. I think I really try to keep space in my life. There's this great documentary called The Connected Universe, and it explores the role that energy plays in and around our world. And one of the things that's said in that film is, energy exists in space. And so if you can create more space in your life, you're leaving room for more energy to flow in. And so even though I'm running around and I'm busy, I try to carve 2 full days out of a 5-day work week to just be open to see what happens on the back of the beginning half of my week. And it gets filled in different ways, but sometimes new things flow in. And so a new opportunity flowed into my world last week because I had space for it to show up. And if I was full, I couldn't have taken the meeting that allowed it to happen. And so I'm committing to also creating space.
Wow. I really love it, man. I really love it. I think, and this is actually a huge concept, right? It's like just showing up. I mean, it's, we're having all of these thoughts in our mind and we're just not committed to it, right? So we should almost say like, okay, it's not important enough, to do anything with. So where are your parents living currently?
Yes, and they're in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Okay, wow. So that's a little while away. Yeah.
But I'm making my way there. I got my roadmap, so I'm on my way.
Gotcha. So I have actually two more things. I'm the whole show already very curious about. Maybe you're not aware, but behind you there's a beautiful shelf with books. I don't ask you to pick one of them, right? But what is the book that has made a significant change in your life that you would like to share? Go read this because you can get something out of it.
Yeah, there's one that immediately comes to mind for me, and it's called Shantaram. 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 And it's based on a true story of an Australian man that, escapes from like a medium security prison in Australia and escapes to India and goes and has a series of lives in India, everything from living in the slums to exploring the underworld, the mafia world, to the Hollywood industry, to getting more like politically affiliated and associated, to exploring rural parts of India. And it's a 1,000-page book, and it's a long one. But a couple different reasons why I think that it's so important is, one, when a book is that long, you develop really intimate relationships with the characters. And so these people become a part of your lives, which means you're more invested in the bits of knowledge and information that they have to share with you. So one, I just think it's a beautiful tool for connection and using literature as a great tool. Two, and this is a concept that I've really gotten from Paulo Coelho books, but I've also found it reflected here, is I love learning new concepts through a narrative format. And so if you want to teach me something, tell me a story. And I think you'll see that that's evident in also the way that I teach, in the way that I share, but it's one of my favorite ways to learn. And so I learned concepts about life from that book, through the narrative of this guy going on his journey, similar to the way that I think The Alchemist teaches us principles of spirituality, self-awareness, and reflection through the story of a shepherd traversing Spain.
Yeah. Then we're coming back to Paulo Coelho when we're closing this conversation, truly. I have one last question for you, and I hope it's not a too big question. You're in the game of discovering the why within companies, letting them to show up, commit to it, drive revenues and opportunities in culture. You have created trend reports before, how you believe the world gets innovated. And, I think when we will look back to the year 2020 in 10 years from now, then we would see, on a macro perspective, what a huge, massive changes are currently happening into our, let it be cultural environments, technological trends, all of these things are happening. So I'm just very curious, in some big nuggets with your vision, how you always tell stories, where do you see in a few big concepts the world is going through?
Yeah, I think awareness.
Yeah.
I think it's a big one, but I think awareness is one that comes to mind immediately, right? I think people are paying more attention, and whether that is paying more attention to devices and being connected, or paying more attention to issues globally, paying more attention to themselves, parts of themselves that are emerging, paying more attention to each other, paying more attention to the things that matter, paying more attention to the things that don't. I think I think we are all getting a bit of a wake-up call in terms of awareness. And, look, not being able to go outside or see other people or engage removes the opportunity to escape from yourself. And so then you're left with you. And, what happens when you get to know you really well? I think awareness is a big piece that comes up there. And so I think, we're already seeing the rise of awareness. I think we're seeing more people stand for more things that reflect that. And I think we'll continue. I think we are only seeing the very beginnings of that.
And how does it translate into new businesses on the rise, or how will businesses adapt to that?
Yeah, well, it goes back to listening, right? So what does the market need? Where are there opportunities in the market? And if people are paying more attention and have more awareness, I mean, look, the things that jump out immediately are like social platforms have seen a rise. The major tech companies over the course of the past year have grown exponentially, given the fact that we're spending more time in a connected environment. I mean, even video conferencing has seen a huge lift in resurgence. And so people are finding new ways to connect and share their awareness about what's happening. And I think we'll continue to see the expansion of that, whether it's through tools that facilitate connection or tools that facilitate conversation. Because one of the best ways I think you can share your awareness and enhance your awareness is through connection and conversation with others. And so I think being a company that exhibits that it's listening and paying attention to what's happening, and whether that's internally with their employees or externally to the market, is going to be really important. It already is. It's going to continue to be. And I think people will have less patience for brands and businesses that aren't willing to also show who they are and show that they have an awareness about themselves.
Personalized messaging, maybe how AI is playing a role in that to give everybody their specific treatments, feeling that you're...
What's the values of the organization? What's the heartbeat behind the logo, right? Like, who are these people and, what do they care about? What do they show up for in the world? Yeah. So I think, you're already seeing it at a consumer level where people's purchasing behaviors are becoming a more direct reflection of their values. Sustainability is a great example of that, where you're seeing consumers literally use their dollars to make decisions about how companies act in the world, about things that are completely unrelated to the product other than just the byproduct of it. And so I think we started to see that trend happen in sustainability. I think we'll see it spill into a lot of different industries, and I think it's already begun.
Yeah.
Man, it was a true pleasure to chat with you for the last hour. Not only having you as a guest on the Startup Chef podcast, but as well to connect with you as a friend and see what you're all up to. I can just say, it's just missing. I still remember a lot of conversations that we had, like drinking, sipping beers and tapping quickly in all of these big bang concepts, but are also still staying very human. So extremely thank you for joining. For people that want to know a little bit more or want to work with Shaan, which is, of course, like we discussed during the show, a very welcome way, because we as founders are stuck in our way, in our living room, in our business, in the way we move through things. And sometimes having a third person with a shitload, I just want to use that word, a shitload of experience that brings it to the field to give you just that other new twist, how you can focus more on your revenues, your opportunities, and your culture. If you would like to connect with Shaan, I needed to check it here and read it from the screen. It's www.3rbts.com. It's short of 3rabbits.com. Shaan, if people want to connect with you on social media, which platform are you really active on, and people can drop you a DM?
Yeah, I'm at Shaan J. Coelho everywhere on the internet. So LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm the same thing everywhere in the world because I'm fortunate enough to have a very uniquely spelled name. So at Shaan J. Coelho everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you very much, buddy. It's again a true pleasure to have you. Unfortunately, I couldn't say okay, we meet each other next week, but I hope to connect more often with you over moments like this. It can still be a very warm and cool conversation. A lot of inspiration today. I wish you an amazing day. You are, of course, I see that it already gets a little bit darker behind you. Here in Bali, we are just rising on the day. Thank you for taking the time, buddy. And I will talk to you very, very soon.
Thanks, great, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning in today at the Founders Tribe podcast. I truly hope you have found some inspiration and the golden nuggets so you can leverage this to lift your founders game. By the way, if you want to stay updated about our weekly releases, then please hit the subscribe button so you will never ever need to miss out and choose which one of the guests you can tune into. If you're planning to raise capital for your startup and would love to discover if you are fundraise ready, if your startup has what it takes, then please take our free signature fundraise quiz, where we will benchmark your answers against our 9-step Date Your Investor framework. As a result, you will receive a 20-page tailor-made recommendation report to be better tomorrow. Want to find out more? Go to www.thestartupchef.com, www.thestartupchef.com. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode.